copper, CPO, and coal, and regional economic integration such as ASEAN and also RCEP. She has received her PhD from University of Adelaide, Australia in 2013. I would like to welcome, hello, Dr. Eka. Could you please open your camera and also unmute yourself? Yeah. Hello,
Yeah.
Bu.
Hello.
So I will start by start sharing your slide presentation first. Okay. Can you see the slide, Bu?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So whenever you are ready, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Monica, as a moderator. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I would like to share a part of my research on a topic of free trade area between ASEAN and Australia and New Zealand. Focus of our discussion is does Indonesia gain from ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand free trade area, which is this discussion is concerned on a trade analysis of oil, gas, and mining products. Okay, and then next. So here is the background of the research. It was started from the fact that oil, gas, mining, and quarrying sectors still have relatively high contribution on Indonesia GDP. It shows that oil, gas, and mining reveal important sectors for Indonesian economy. On the other hand, Indonesia fuel contributes fifth rank of export, about 9% to Australia, while it is as the biggest import, about 29% from Australia in 2019. And also Indonesia fuels contribute as the fifth rank of export, about 15% to New Zealand, while it contributes small of import value, about 1% from New Zealand in 2019. Next. The ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand free trade area is a comprehensive and single undertaking free trade agreement that opens up and creates new opportunities for approximately 663 million people of ASEAN, Australia, and New Zealand, a region with a combined GDP of approximately $4 trillion. The ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand free trade area aims to sustainable economic growth in the region by providing a more liberal facilitation and transparent market and investment regime among the 12 signatories to the agreement. Indonesia export value to ASEAN and Australia, New Zealand cost of ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand free trade are fluctuated, as we can see from the graph on the PPT. Indonesia import of goods and services from ASEAN and Australia, New Zealand exceeded the export value. We can see from the graph. It shows that Indonesia tend to get the deficit of trade. The volume of trade increased, but Indonesia got deficit. So we can see from the start of the implementation of ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand free trade area, about in 2011 to 2015, 2011 and 2015, we can see Indonesia still get the deficit of trade. Okay, and then Indonesia import of goods and services from ASEAN and New Zealand, Australia, New Zealand exceed the export values. It should be free trade area, increase welfare trade countries involved in. It is expected that export will rise after the FTA. So from this background, I and my partner have a research that some aims from this research are as follow. Next, please. Yeah. The objective of this research and also our discussion today is to investigate Indonesia trade performance of the oil, gas, and mining export commodities after the implementation of ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand Free Trade Area. And then to analyze competitiveness of the oil, gas, and mining and its ability to increase Indonesia's export. And then the last is to analyze whether Indonesia gains from ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand Free Trade Area. Next. Okay, before we discuss further, let me inform you regarding method that I use. The research utilized numerous secondary data, and for this discussion, I have updated some data that I have published before. Actually, this research have been published in a international journal. But for today discussion, I have updated all of the data as far as I can. Okay, method that I use are first normalize, reveal comparative advantage to know the export performance, particularly on the competitiveness of goods traded. The normalized reveal comparative advantage index shows the capacity of an industry to increase its share in international market. That this index is usually used to identify whether a sector or particular product has competitiveness in international market or not. Second, panel data model to analyze how the competitiveness of oil, gas, and mining product contribute to the Indonesian export. And the last is the GTAP model. I use GTAP model version 10 to analyze impact of free trade area among ASEAN, Australia, and New Zealand. That I had a simulation of the model of general equilibrium model for all of the country of member of ASEAN and also Australia and New Zealand. That I had used the GTAP model and also data for the model have been first version of 10. This is the latest model of interregional model in the world, and then it use the basic year of 2017. Okay, and then next. Okay, let's discuss now about the trade performance. So from the 4 pictures here, we can see top 8 products that dominates in ASEAN Australia market and ASEAN New Zealand market. We can see from 2 paragraphs above that in ASEAN, Australia, and New Zealand trade area, oils products, particularly petroleum oils, dominate export and import. ASEAN import of petroleum oil is higher than its export in Australian market, while in New Zealand market, its export dominates. When we see Indonesia trade performance on oil, gas, and mining or mineral products with Australia and New Zealand, The two below paragraph reveal that metals product as the main export product to Australia, while coal is the main export products to New Zealand. Conversely, from the import side, we can see from the two pictures below that Indonesia import more on Australia's coal. Okay, and then next. Yeah, now we are moving to the discussion. Sorry. In this research, we analyze competitiveness of oil, gas, mining products from the index of normalized reveal comparative advantage. We found that commodities of oil, gas, and mining, coal, tin, petroleum oils are leading commodities that have high competitiveness in the ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand market. The trade performance of Indonesia commodities shows high competitiveness on oil, gas, mining before and after implementation of ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand FTA, particularly on the product of natural gas, petroleum oil, coal, and tin, as we can see from the table below. The competitiveness in the period of ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand free trade area tend to increase, but only on natural gas. Okay, then we try to investigate ability of oil and gas mining to increase Indonesia export under ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand free trade area scheme. Using data panel regression, we can see from this table that we have developed 4 models for natural gas, petroleum oil, coal, and tin. The results show that a competitiveness variable influence only on Indonesia export of natural gas. So from the result of the statistic model, it means that only natural gas can boost Indonesia's export under ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand FTA. We can say that although the other sectors, petroleum, oil, coal, and tin, have high competitiveness that we have identified before, their competitiveness are not enough to boost Indonesia's exports. It is also confirmed from another variable, which is FTA. So the last variable is FTA, free trade, referring to the free trade area, ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand free trade. FTA only impact on increasing Indonesia export for the commodity of natural gas. So we can see from this 4 model that only FTA on the model for natural gas have a significant impact on the increasing export of the Indonesian export. And then next. Okay, so this is the result that actually I added from my journal publication that I had investigate about the impact of free trade area among Australia, ASEAN, Australia, and New Zealand. So in this work that I had done is I had tried to simulate a liberalization of oil, gas, and mining products. So it is assumed that there is no tariff barriers for the trade between ASEAN countries and Australia and New Zealand under the ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand scheme free trade area. Using GTAP model and database, we have result as the described on this table. The result reveals that Indonesia has less positive impact from FTA of ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand. We can see here from the variable of macroeconomics, from the welfare, trade balance, GDP, investment, and consumption, compared to other countries, even among ASEAN members and also Australia and New Zealand. The result reveals that Indonesia has a less positive impact when we compare with other countries in some macroeconomies. For example, Indonesia welfare after the liberalization of tariff in oil, gas, and mining products, that in Indonesia welfare will decrease about 3.81%. And then trade balance only increase about 0.96 million US dollar. So they are compared to other countries such as Australia. Australia get the highest positive impacts on the welfare, trade balance, and also consumption. So from this, all of the result of this research, I can give some conclusion and recommendation. Next, please. Yeah. Okay. From our investigation and analysis, some conclusion that we provide are: first, the trade performance of Indonesia commodities shows a high competitiveness, in particularly products of oil, gas, and mining products, even before and after implementation of ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand FTA, particularly on natural gas, but petroleum oil and coal, and also tin. However, only natural gas has improved its competitiveness after the ASEAN-Australia FTA implementation. The rest sectors tend to decrease. Third, the competitiveness shows the capacity of the industries to increase their shares in international market, particularly ASEAN and Australia, New Zealand market. And the fourth of this conclusion is, although the other sectors, particularly oil and mining products, have high competitiveness, they are not enough to boost export, that it seems that Indonesia still lack to improve its capacity related to the technology improvement on the downstream sectors, that it can influence to the Indonesian competitiveness relatively with the Australia as and New Zealand as the trade partners. Some recommendation from this research. First is Indonesia decision maker are suggest to seek and develop potential products of the raw resources based and have high added values and also the high competitiveness in the market of ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand. And then the last is Indonesia can play various trade partnership in other form. For example, Indonesia now have implemented preferential trading area (PTA), Indonesia, Australia, that it can also to support or to increase another benefit from the trade in the area of even in ASEAN or also in bilateral partnership. Okay, those are materials that I can share from my study. Discussion for the next are very welcome to enrich my next research. Thank you, Monica. Please, I give the time for you.
Yeah, Thank you very much, Dr. Eka, for the excellent presentation. I found it interesting that it is natural gas that is competitive in compared to like coal, oil, and gas. Because I thought it will be coal actually, but yeah, it's me who has no extensive background on economy. So now allow me to welcome the perspective from Dr. Aloysius Joko Purwanto. He is an energy economist at the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia or area since mid 2018. He has been participating in studies to prepare energy outlooks of ASEAN countries, to analyze the impacts of new alternative technologies and fuels in transport sectors in ASEAN countries, such as electric vehicle and biofuels. Before working in area, he worked at the Transport and Mobility Leuven in Belgium for almost 10 years, where he involved in various European Commission research projects in energy and transport economics. Prior to that, between 2005 and 2008, he was a grant holder researcher at Energy Unit of Joint Research Center of the European Commission in Seville, Spain. Dr. Joko obtained his master and doctoral degree in France and his bachelor of civil engineering from Universitas Indonesia. Hello, Dr. Joko. It is our pleasure to have you here. So, without further ado, let me pass the floor to you.
Hello, good afternoon, selamat siang, Ibu Monica and Ibu Eka. Thank you so much for this opportunity and this highly important event where I have been invited. And it was a pleasure to hear this presentation from Ibu Dr. Eka and to know about this acts of research that give us a very insightful elements of trade between Indonesia and the ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand FTA countries. It is really interesting, in fact, to see how the performance of energy-related commodities from Indonesia in this FTA region in particular. Most specifically, I think that this research from Ibu Dr. Eka provides us with some solid elements to plan what Indonesia needs to do with its energy-related commodities in the future. The relevance of this study, I think, is accentuated with the current issues, among others, the economic recovery from pandemic situation, and then the need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, especially that we are now heading towards a very important COP26 to be held soon in Scotland, where topics such as carbon neutrality and then as well zero carbon emissions would be in the center of discussion, and of course trade liberalization. I have the first question, which is much more clarification questions. I would maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I would like to know if the research consider the data or of the time series before the implementation of this ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand FTA. As long as I can understand, the agreement was put in place in 2010, and then the detailed analysis of the study covered the period of 2010 to 2015. So therefore, I would like to know how we can really see the changes brought in by this FTA in particular. I saw that that Ibu Dr. Eka presented the table of the model, where we can see clearly one of the dependent variable, which is the FTA. But I just curious how the analysis have been done if it doesn't take into account the data of the years before the implementation of FTA. Yeah, but could you please clarify that? And then I think I will go to the second observation, is that from the research of Ibu Dr. Eka, we see a very interesting trend of decreasing competitiveness of several energy-related commodities such as oils, coals, and then natural gas. And if we check the data from the Comtrade, for example, it is true that beyond 2015, this commodities export has been decreasing in general terms. I mean, like the decreasing trend is obvious in oils, petroleum oils, and then oils obtained from bituminous minerals and crude. And then we can see that from Comtrade data that the decrease of our export to Malaysia and Singapore happened since 2018 for petroleum gases and other gaseous hydrocarbons. And then about the coal bituminous, the trend was more varied more, but since 2018, from Comtrade data, we can see that the drop has becoming significant. Only that vegetable oils such as palm oil and its fraction, like Ibu Dr. Eka has mentioned, that the trend varied, no clear or significant trend of decreasing or increasing during the after 2015. So that if we go back to the conclusion that the trend of certain commodities is decreasing, we can ask ourselves, is this something good or something bad? Maybe this is not something bad, because in fact, in my view, we need to consider what happened for at least to the domestic need or domestic stock. For example, for the crude oil, just 2 weeks ago, we can read in the newspaper that the head of the Secretary General of National Energy Council, Pak Joko, he showed his doubt that Indonesia would be able to reach crude oil lifting rate to 1 million barrel per day by 2030. We are currently at around 700,000 barrel per day, and according to then calculation, we might not reach the target of 1 million barrel per day by 2030, but instead we will drop to around 300,000 barrel per day. So that is really risking how we will meet the domestic need of oil. And then coal is, of course, one of the most competitive commodities, as also Bu Monica mentioned, especially in this period where China is experiencing like this energy crunch. Then we should learn a lot of things about what happened there, not only in China, but also in the EU, in the European Union and India. Probably we need to balance aggressiveness of climate policy measures with the availability of fossil fuel sources such as coals, and then the installed capacity of the renewable-based power generation, and then fossil fuel-based power generation. And like earlier this year, we had also problems in the coal supply chain. January to this year, we experienced shortage of coal supply to power plant in Java due to flood in South Kalimantan, where coal mines are located. At the end, it is true, as Ibu Dr. Eka mentioned, that natural gas should be used as one of the most important intermediate solutions, as it is the least carbon emitting fossil fuels. Then natural gas should be used to replace diesel fuel still used in power plants in the future. So my question is, in this paper, Ibu Dr. Eka used RCA and the normalized RCA indices to show the competitiveness of Indonesian export commodities in this FTA region. In my view, this indeed show competitiveness, but to some limit. For example, in my opinion, they are lack the ability to capture the sustainability aspects of the export commodities. For example, as I mentioned, they don't consider domestic stock or consumption. How we will meet the future stock, such as that kind of questions. And for example, in crude oil, Indonesia is and will be struggling to meet our domestic demand. do you know other commodity competitiveness indicators or indices that would better meet sustainability criteria? And or what kind of other frameworks of analysis would be able to capture sustainability aspects? And then moreover, we have now climate change and environmental issues that can also enter into the sustainability criteria. And then the last observation from my side is the conclusion to focus on renewable-based energy commodity exports such as crude palm oil or CPO. We know that in 2018, Indonesia has been in negotiation with the European Union since the European Union issued the second RED, Renewable Energy Directive, that will be completely ban will be completely banning crude palm oil from Indonesia towards 2030. And then as a reaction to that kind of directive from the European Union, for example, we have been boosting our mandate of biodiesel mix up to currently B30. And then 4 days ago, we can read in the newspaper that President Jokowi asked to more downstreaming CPO products for domestic use, such as in biodiesels. And 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, we also read in the newspaper that Indonesia will make use also of CPO for the aviation. We will produce a bioafter to be made 2.5% bioafter, and then we will also produce. Pertamina is developing the refinery in Cilacap, for example, to produce green diesels and also green gasolines, which is hydrotreated vegetable oil. So this is an advanced biofuel that has no problem of suitability with regard to the conventional transport fuels. So based on this observation, I just would like to know what will be your suggestion in elaborating policy measures of Indonesia by focusing its export in the renewable-based energy commodities such as CPO, amid this ban put in place by the EU, and also Indonesia government plan to downstream more CPO use for domestic need. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Dr. Eka, would you like to comment on that? Because I found it very interesting, especially the second and third question. I'm also personally curious about the answer. So yeah, please, Dr.
Okay.
Eka.
All right. Thank you, Pak Dr. Joko. They are very good questions, I think. Maybe some that if I lost of the question, please remind me again. Okay, some of notes that I can comment from the Pak Joko response is about the data. Yeah, the data that I use for this research, that actually I use the research from 2009 to 2015 for the model of econometrica or panel data. Yeah, and then I use FTA, free trade area variable as the variable, as the dummy variable that in 2009 it represent of non free trade area, and from 2009 to 2011, because effectively the free trade area is 2011. Yeah, and then 2012 and from 2012 and 2015, we have a dummy variable for free trade area. Okay, and then also because my research have been conducted in 2018, so for today discussion, I have updated some data actually, and also for the GTAP data, I have used the latest data that GTAP had. Even it used for the table input output of 2017 for the about 140 countries in the world for the GTAP model, but it still represent for the simulation of a with or without policy, with or without simulation, with or without a shock. So we can see from the result of the GTAP model. Okay, and then about the decreasing competitiveness. Okay, is it a good or bad? All right. The petroleum, oil, coal, and tin, I said before, I identified from the result of the competitiveness index. I have used for reveal competitiveness index. The variable is good to know how the competitiveness of one product in the market, international market. So we can see whether this one product that we had in a country, has competitiveness to the other countries. So we can see from the index of RCA or NRCA. Whether the decreasing of petroleum, oil, coal, and tin tend to decrease. So I can say from the perspective of trade, it shows that it is bad. But if we see from the domestic matters, I think because some policies that have to fulfill the domestic market first, it is good for the sustainability of the energy in a country. Yeah. So if for the tools of RCA and RCA, we can use it to compare the competitiveness. What is the position of the competitiveness of Indonesia product compared to other ASEAN members, and also Australia, and also in New Zealand actually. So we can see whether if we have the excess of a supply from the domestic, so we can see whether we can export for our products in the international market or not. Yeah, so still the RCA and RCA still can use to see whether the position of the product in international market. And also about the RCA and RCA competitiveness is lack of sustainability aspect. Yes, because it is only see for each period time, yeah, particularly period time. If we would like to see the sustainability aspect, I think we have to we can use for the model for the dynamic model. Yeah, I think dynamic model can see whether the availability or the how the competitiveness in the future. Yeah. So the RCA and NRCA that I have provided is the static model, because we only see for the years in the period of 2009 and until 2015. But if we can use a dynamic model to use the how this competitiveness can see as sustainability, or we can see in the future. All right, and then for the CPO, yes, that we have problem. We have ban of our product of trade of a CPO from European Union. Yeah, I think in one side it is bad for Indonesia, because we have to struggling to reveal that to the European Union that all issues about the CPO production Indonesia is actually not true, and we have Indonesia tried to follow the how is the CPO production use of the green way to produce of the CPO. On the other one, the ban of a CPO is good for the domestic production, those domestic needs. Yeah, in my opinion, that if Indonesia has more on CPO, Indonesia actually have to develop of the technology to make a biodiesel mix, and also to fulfill all the policy and also the infrastructure and also facilities that support to the renewable energy, which is a biodiesel. Yeah, it is a good opportunity for Indonesia. For now, it is a transition period now from the oil and gas sector, unrenewable energy, to the renewable energy, because now we still have gas as a replace of the oil and gas. But actually, Indonesia still not ready to about the infrastructure, and also and also the policy, I think, because we can see from the government policy about how to provide the infrastructure that can be used as to the tools and also instrument of such as transportation tools that you use by biodiesel mix. It is still limited, but I think we have a positive future, that people in Indonesia now has been accept the changes of the energy use. Yeah, because people of Indonesian people now have been accept that they have to move, and they have to change their energy alternative, particularly for the domestic consumption, and also for the transportation. Aware for the people that they are ready is, I think, more important to prepare all of the policy and also all of the things that we can use fully of the renewable energy. Yeah, so now we still waiting for the government what we call it, implementation, the real implementation, not only for the discussion and public discussion, I think, for the renewable energy, but we have to implement one by one, implement step by step, yeah, supported by the people that has already ready to use for the renewable energy. I think that's my response, Pak Joko.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Eka. Dr. Joko, do you have any follow-up question or clarification?
Yeah, all right. Is there any that I didn't answer?
No, actually, thank you so much, Ibu Dr. Eka, for all the answers. I think you have answered all my questions, and just would like to add that this paper, your research is really interesting, and I think in the next 10 years we should witness a kind of quite quick change in this kind of energy-related commodities, driven by the motivation or the objective to reach carbon neutrality. For example, we will see all the materials or feedstock that would be used to produce new energy carriers such as hydrogen or ammonia would be in trade between countries, as well as all the materials and feedstock related to bioenergy.
Yep.
That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Joko. So before moving on, I would like to invite our participants here, if any of you would like to ask something, because I don't see anything in the Q&A. So I also didn't see any hand raised. So I would like to ask actually personally. I'm curious about like Dr. Joko mentioned that the threat of this energy commodity will soon change, especially because of the carbon neutrality and net zero target and etc. But I see it like for the case of the threat with the Australia government and especially New Zealand, I noticed that New Zealand already implemented the carbon trading, isn't it? So in I don't know if it implicates if this has impact into the trade of energy commodities between ASEAN. But how is your? I would like to ask to both of you, to Dr. Eka and Dr. Joko, what is your perspective on the direction of these energy commodities towards such a change, like the CBAM, for example, and also for New Zealand, maybe soon or later we'll also implement maybe some kind of carbon tax for international trade. So yeah, could you share your opinion on that?
Okay, thank you, Monica. I think in this my research also show that New Zealand is not a very so the high export or import involved in export and import of the product of oil, gas, and also some minerals. Yeah. we can understand that it could be that it is still a limited resource for those for the products actually, and also they had started to be the renewable energy one. Yeah. I think Indonesia still has opportunity to make a trade, particularly for the renewable energy that I think it is still a need for New Zealand, yeah, as an alternative energy. But for because in this free trade area consists of New Zealand and Australia, Australia now is as the world leader in LNG or gas, natural gas. I think the competitive between Indonesia and Australia, and also in some countries that produce more on gas, natural gas in ASEAN countries, has a high competitive between ASEAN countries and Australia. Yeah, as Australia still utilize the gas, even they also aware to the renewable energy. In some years, I think it is still have the issues in trade of energy, but for the long term, that every countries have to change of the energy. I think Indonesia still also has a opportunity to trade in the energy sector. Yeah, for example, CPO still has as the material of the energy, and also the other energy, renewable energy. I think that's my opinion.
Yeah, may I also invite the opinion from Dr. Joko too?
Thank you, Bu Monica. I think that is a very important question, and it is in line also with Indonesia plan to implement carbon tax in our country. I think what we need to initiate urgently is to set a mechanism to avoid carbon leakage. So this is kind of a financial or market mechanism as well. That this is I'm thinking out loud because we have never discussed about this, but we need to avoid that. For example, when Indonesia one day will implement carbon tax, then none of commercial player in Indonesia would be able to import carbon intensive commodity from abroad without the carbon being taxed. So because without this kind of mechanism, there will be a leakage. I mean, there will be commodity coming in to the market, like high or carbon intensive commodity that would be that wouldn't be taxed, and this is bad for the implementation of carbon tax. This will disturb the market. So I think this is our job. I mean, ACE area and also Pertamina and the government to initiate the discussion about setting up a mechanism to avoid this carbon leakage. I think that's my answer.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Eka and Dr. Joko for the feedbacks. I do agree that, yeah, especially on the carbon leakage mechanism, because that's automatically what would happen if we happen to implement carbon tax here or later internationally. So because the time is limited, but I see one question here from our audience. So I would like to briefly ask to both of you, Dr. Eka and Dr. Joko, How can you see this free trade agreement? Free trade agreement affects the implementation of clean coal technology. Will it increase the possibility of CCT investment in Indonesia? Because as you noted, the data shows that coal itself better to be used domestically, isn't it? So yeah, how are your opinion about this?
Okay, let me answer first. I think it has an impact of the FTA to relation with the implementation of clean coal technologies. Actually, under the agreement of ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand FTA, there are some agreement about standards, technical regulation, and conformity assessment procedures. So if one country involved in the free trade area, they have to follow the standard technical regulation and conformity assessment procedures, including the production of coal. So in the standard, they have to be implemented the standard in all of the countries involved in the FTA. So the implementation of the FTA should be support the use of clean coal technologies. As long as in the standard technical regulation and conformity assessment procedures have been mentioned, all of the requirement that countries that export or import involved, they have to follow all of the standard under the agreement. Okay, that's my answer.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Dr. Eka. Yeah, Dr. Joko, please.
Yeah, I second Ibu Dr. Eka answers. I think regulations and standard should be implemented, so that will be a part of the non-tariff measures to be implemented in the FTA region. That's all. Okay.
Yeah, thank you again for Dr. Eka and Dr. Joko. So because we already reached the time actually, so I would like to ask first whether is it okay for you to stay for another 5 minutes, because I would like to share a few updates on our future events. But however, if you have other meetings to attend, please feel free to leave the room. Okay. Okay, let me stop sharing this first. Yeah. So just a few more updates. It will take only maybe less than 5 minutes. So I would like to share first is about ARNECC itself. ARNECC is a group of scholars, analysts, researchers, students, and other stakeholders organized under the themes of energy and climate studies. The main objective is to facilitate an interdisciplinary forum for the discussion of social, economic, governance, and technical issues related to energy and climate change. It is open to any researchers from any discipline or level or experience, not limited to any particular technology, sector, or topic from all Southeast Asia. To register, please check ARNECC webpage here. And if you have further questions, please let us know by emailing Benny Suryadi at aseanenergy.org. Next, it's about the ARNECC research database. So we happened to release this database 3 months ago, which aim to be the platform for the ARNECC member or any researcher that want their publications on energy climate topic related to be disseminated more effectively to us South Asian readers. Please note that this database take the copyright terms seriously, so as you may later check in our website that this database only provide the link to the original UI. We have received positive feedback since the launch, and by now we have 157 curated papers, and the numbers we hope still keeps growing. So we are inviting all the researchers who wants to showcase their paper to simply submit the details of your publication at the link here. Next. So I would like to also promote that the ARNECC paper talks that we conducted monthly every last week of the month. Here I'm also inviting all researchers who want their paper to be showcased to ASEAN audience to please send detail of your paper, short bio, and photo to accept.com@aseanenergy.org. Last but not least, I'm also inviting you to participate in the ACE Think Tank Roundtable at Singapore International Energy Week, or SIU 2021, that will be held 2 days from now at Thursday, 28th October. SIU itself is a hybrid event available on-site and online for streaming. It is an annual platform for energy professionals, policymakers, and commentators to share best practices and solutions within the global energy space. In this roundtable, we will bring experts from the private sectors, academia, government to discuss the needed actions and strategies to foster innovation in ASEAN's energy transition. Here, I would like to highlight we have confirmed the participation of the Vice President of Sembcorp, Editan, and also the partner infrastructure leader of PwC Singapore, Jennifer Tay, and Vice President of ACWA Power, Dr. Andrea Lovato, and also the Director of Energy Transformation Program, Ms. Sirpa, and also the Head of Center for Research and Energy Policy, Dr. Retno Gumilang from ITB. So now we have reached the end of our talk here. Again, I would like to appreciate our distinguished experts here, Dr. Eka and Dr. Joko, for the insights, lively discussion, as well as your valuable time for this event. I would like to also sincerely appreciate the active participation from our audience here. Please stay safe and healthy, and look forward to see you again in the next month ARNECC Paper Talks. Thank you.
Thank you Mbak Monica. Saya boleh live ya?
Iya, boleh Bu. Terima kasih banyak Bu Eka.
Sama-sama.
Ya. Jangan bosen-bosen ya Bu.
Ya, nanti saya kalau ada yang saya publish lagi, saya ini lagi. Iya.
Ya.
Makasih.
Ya. Terima kasih Bu. Ya.